Ebanks Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Ebanks Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you were in my position, you probably feel the same way. Blessed, highly favored, and man, enjoying the abundance that life has to offer. We invite you to be a part of today's fantastic Friday edition of Talk Today. 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much. And if you don't think that civil servants are dedicated, truly loyal and committed to serving the interests of our country, think again, as Luigi always shares. Now we're going to have some open line in a short order. Honored to be able to welcome to our studio a discussion on One Health. And more and more, partly because Ms. Susan has continually lamented, some would say admonished me to make sure that we reference our YouTube channel. I'd rather sit and have a eye-to-eye conversation as opposed to get involved with all of the interesting things that transpire in this thing that we call the social media domain. But nonetheless, West Bears, we improvise. Let's have some open line on 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255 as we await the opportunity to start a discussion on One Health. Maybe you can do some quick research, not just look at Wikipedia, because that's not necessarily a Google search is synonymous with anything substantive, but it can be a good, useful tool. And what do you know about One Health? Well, in the meantime, let's have some conversation about some of the things that are transpiring in our society. And without question, and without any sort of, great fear that many, as politicians, would-be politicians, former parliamentarians, have shared this notion that our vote relative to the upcoming referendum is probably one of the most historical undertakings in our country. The process, as well as the outcome, the consequences, as well as the cost of what may transpire as a result. So what is your perspective? 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Is it, as some of you have shared, nothing more than political grandstanding? Is it, as some of you have, very cautiously shared with me to make sure that I don't repeat it improperly or inappropriately? Is it just that we are remiss in looking at the potential impact to our country, not just of doing something and getting it wrong financially, economically, and otherwise, but not doing something and missing an opportunity? Is it that we're not looking at the big picture and saying, how do we go back to the drawing table? So the perception, at least, isn't that it is being driven by some interest group, political interest group, financial interest group, and an environmental interest group. Are we looking at 10, 50 years down the road and what our actions will have on the generation then? But equally, those who live and occupy the space now, how would that affect us as we go through our discussions? Now, you may say, I've heard enough about the port, don't want to hear more about it. Well, that may be your perspective equally. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. As we invite you to share with us, quick reminder that all of the wonderful hard work of our team in preparing for our annual Breeze Fusion Walk Run takes place tomorrow, Smith's Macadere. Thank you all for sponsoring who did, those who were registered and come out to participate. It's going to be a beautiful morning. It's not just an opportunity for our community to come together, to not just celebrate our people, but to contribute to the wonderful charities. And it's always been an honor for us to have the opportunity to support the NCVO. But like everything we do at Radio Cayman, we're as inclusive, and sometimes we try to be exhaustive in making sure that we cover all the bases. So we're going to benefit not just Grand Cayman, but Cayman Rag and Little Cayman. And with that, we see that our annual Pirates Week festivities extend to not just one island, but all three, not just for one day, but seemingly throughout the month. 949-8837 or WhatsApp 925-3261. Very eager and anxious to get into our scheduled discussion relative to the One Health and the notion that it's not just this holistic approach. It's not just for government sector or even the commercial interests of restaurants and the like, but what we as individuals could potentially do for our students who will join us, for our policy advisors, to the great intellect and acumen of someone like Dr. Samantha Dorman, hopefully being able to collectively give us a perspective as to what we will, not just be able to do, but maybe what we have, unfortunately, inadvertently been doing to date that contributes not just to food waste, to growing greenhouse, gas emissions, but that impact both economically and environmentally that we're having in our societies. And could we learn from the examples of other jurisdictions? Is it easier because we're a population of 100,000 or thereabouts than the population that may be approaching 1 million? If we do it right now with a small population, would it become sort of mainstay for when we do get to that larger growing population? Well, 949-8837 or 1-800-534-8255 as you call and weigh in and share your thoughts with us. Anxious to share something, but cautiously, simply because we are, without fear or favor, always political in our endeavors. Whether we like it or not is always the perception. And no matter how you attempt to be perceived as impartial, objective, even honest and acting with a sense of integrity, there's always that question, what is his angle? Well, they say round is a shape. I was once round, now I'm trying to get in shape. But what is the shape that we're trying to position our society? Is it one that is healthy? Is it one that causes others to look at it and say, you know what, that's not only socially stable, politically secure, but financially wealthy? But is it one where the people move about the communities and feel as if they can make a positive contribution, irrespective of they've been there for generations, or they've just celebrated their 1 year official anniversary of joining the society formally? Or is it that they've just visited and think, what a beautiful place, I would like to make it a home, and not take, but contribute, not just be able to sit and relax, but not have to work every day, all day, to make ends meet, as it were. Now, idealistic? Perhaps. Possible? Definitely. Can it happen without an effort? Most unlikely. Again, how do our actions impact and affect others around us? Well, 949-8837, you may feel that this is your time to shine. You may want to share your thoughts with us. Otherwise, what they say, if you stick your head in the sand, it doesn't mean your six isn't exposed. You want to pretend that nothing happens? Well, do so. But rest assured, the world goes on with or without you. Your impact is certainly influential. I'm going to pause and take a short break. DJ Lynn is sitting there. DJ Lynn, tomorrow are you ready for the Breeze Fusion Walk? You sure? Come on, my friend. Tell me now you're going to be put to work and having to get up super early. I think Miss Norma shared that you need to be there 4 o'clock. That's AM, not PM. You right? All right. Well, we're going to pause. Take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. We do, plan to get into some other things later in the afternoon. And we have Mr. Albert Lindsay scheduled to join us at 1:30 to talk about a number of issues, as we hear not only from his legal perspective, but his financial acumen as well. So those are the things on the schedule for today. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Think about something that makes you happy. Did it make you smile? We know it did, because that's what we do at Sagicor. put smiles on our clients' faces every day. With a large range of products to cover your family, it's no wonder most locals choose Sagicor for their life insurance needs. Serving the community for over 25 years. Let us put a smile on your face. Call your Sagicor advisor today.
Pure Art Gallery and Gifts has wonderful new gifts galore, and our beautiful Cayman Christmas corner is sure to delight with unique gifts, holiday decorations, ornaments, cards, and Debbie's 2020 desk calendars and new Cayman coloring book. Pure Art on South Church Street for gifts that last a lifetime.
As a Caymanian, it's very important to me that projects like this are thought of thoroughly before continuing.
My question is, do we need it? And I've not yet been fully convinced that we need it, nor have I been fully convinced that we don't need it. So
what guarantee do we have that these ships are going to continue to come?
Please make the right decision.
Please don't let the catchy songs overturn you. Please support the referendum. Please ensure that you are supporting sustainable tourism, not just money-making tourism.
If the project plans have changed, even though it might be insignificant on paper, it's going to be significant for the environment.
They need to release official information, official facts.
That's where I am right now. I want to know, I want more information on do we need it.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
Radio Cayman 3 to 6 mix on the weekdays. Brought to you by
Cayman Insurance Center, serving the community for 45 years. Don't take chances with your family's future. Call Denise Brown at 814-7229 or Michael Webster at 925-5433.
Every day.
Every day.
All the time.
All the time.
Also brought to you by Merengue Town.
It's time to feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
Okay, let's go. Saturday, November 2nd, Breeze Fusion 2019.
Are you ready? Yeah.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCBO.
Yes, Cayman Islands, it's back. Your chance to be healthy. Your chance to give back.
Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studio.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
I like to move it. You like to move it.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Taking place at Smith Bacadere, starting at 6:15 a.m.
Remember to discard all fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, all foods in canisters, dented, leaking or rusting cans after they have come in contact with flood water. Also discard foods that are stored in cardboard boxes, paper foil, cellophane, and cloth, as well as those in open containers and packages. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. What is it that our parents tell us? You find something that you like to do, you never feel like you ever go to work again. Well, I'm still looking. No, just kidding. I'm so grateful to be able to sit in this chair and facilitate our discussions, to learn. I always feel like a student and honored when we're able to have discussions like we're just about to start now. If I may initially have Dr. Samantha Dorman and welcome her to the studio to set the tone, and maybe through you I'll take guidance as to be introduced. We also have our acting chief officer, Ms. Nancy Barnard, joining us as well. So some would say, oh, he should be here. Hasn't started yet, so we'll see. But Dr. Dorman, Deputy Chief Officer. Ooh, Mom, I just promoted you. Hey, speak those things into being. No, I say this hopefully with a great sense of being fun, but with the greatest respect. I love our civil servants. The dedication. Yes. People don't see them, late in the evenings. Hopefully, that doesn't make their security any less. But the weekends, the holidays, not just the public holidays, but when they're on vacation, they come in for a couple hours, and 6 hours later,
That's right.
They're at their desks still doing work. I admire that. It inspires me.
Spreading the word.
Yeah, no man, they're remarkable. They're remarkable. Makes me almost want to work, but talk to them and thank you so much, Mom, and thanks for these discussions.
Once again.
All right, One Health and the One Health Working Group. Give us a perspective and tell us how we should go about not just having this discussion, how we should introduce our guests. And I'm going to follow you because they say if you follow someone who knows what they're doing, then you might actually end up in a good place.
Oh boy. Okay, so today we're here to talk about One Health Day, which is observed internationally each year on the 3rd of November, so that'll be this Sunday. And this year our theme is focusing on food waste. So we're going to be looking at some of the causes of food waste and the different sectors that contribute to it. With us here today we have the Senior Policy Advisor for Agriculture, Mr. Dwayne Nash. We also have 2 interns with us who are interning with the Department of Agriculture. They are final year vet students at Purdue University, and they're going to bring some perspective from a student angle, as well as talk a little bit about their One Health Club as part of their university. And we also have Deputy Chief Officer Nancy Bernard, who's going to be speaking about some of the health and environmental impacts from food waste.
And we thought, Ms. Nancy, when we think of food waste, maybe, at least from my perspective, we initially think, well, what about at the table? The families gathered. Some of us grew up where our parents said, okay, finish the food in your plate because waste not want, there's starving children in whatever country, or even maybe down the road.
Right.
But it's more than just that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the theme for this year's One Health. But on a broader sense, the reason that the ministry is so interested in supporting the One Health initiative is because we are also responsible for environment and health, as well as culture and housing. And never before has it been more important to look at this as a sort of a web which has intricate links, because how we live lighter on the earth for the survival of the species and for human and animal species, all animals, is by paying attention to what we consume, which has a knock-on effect with agriculture, with farming, and looking at how we dispose of things, because when you throw something away, it's never really thrown away. So that's the environmental side. So I'd like to delve more deeper into all of that.
Right. And with that, Mr. Nash, when we think of it, not to put you in any untenable position, I'm always mindful that if you're politically elected or politically appointed, then you need to take the politically, issues that come to your table. So I'm mindful. But in reading about whether it's any issue to do with environment or sustainability, or where do we hear so often, looking at things, there always needs to be a will. And in this instance, a political will to move it, because it's a policy advisor. So from the policy perspective, to get the community, to get the country, to get those initially who would be responsible for disseminating, for educating, involved. Your perspective, what would be the best way, or one of the better ways, to bring us on board with understanding our impact, as small as we may think it is?
Well, to be honest, in looking at the
later, man, come on.
in looking at the Cayman context, I don't think from an agricultural perspective that food waste is a big issue currently, because since there are efforts in the ministry to increase local production, one of the things is, however, food loss along the value chain, we find where the possibility of food being lost, which the effect of this is equivalent almost to food waste. For example, it could be just raising some layers. You don't have market for your eggs. What do you do with the eggs? Do you just dispose of them, or is there a case where you could, give it to a charitable arm or a church group to feed some people, etc.? So that's where the wider community could come in these practices.
Could we maybe at some point, and again, a collective discussion, this is the idea of waste, waste not want not. For some reason that resonates with me in so many ways. Even the clothes that we have, words like upcycle become part of the thought. But if I could just ask you just one last thing, and then respectfully invite the students in for a brief discussion, introduction and the like. But Mr. Nash, from that perspective, the perception that potential, as you shared, in our society, food waste isn't a big deal. Is it, one, that it isn't, or two, it's even more widespread than we recognize. Not just the scraps from the table that we may feed the dog or that we may put down the garbage disposal thing, but the 2 million plus who visit our shores, the amount of people in our restaurants who order, and I've got to be careful, that's a little too much too. Sometimes the buffets that we attend, the different things, when we aggregate that, could be a lot of food. Just from that simple perspective. Yeah.
From that simple perspective, one of the things that we have to be mindful of from a policy level is knowing that in agriculture locally, we're ramping up production, but as you've said, from a buffet, we might have lost a lot of food, etc. As to how we, from a policy level, can, include strategies that can greater utilize these wastes from just end up directly on the landfill or in the environment. As Nancy said, nothing is really lost, but it enters the ecosystem. But we could look at maybe an overarching thing of composting, looking at how we could recover, from these wastes, nutrients that could, to the wider benefit of agriculture, the nutrients to increase our soil fertility, improve our soil structure, because there is an issue of soil, quality of available soil locally. So if we can, in that sense, recover from these wastes, these nutrients, we could see where it positively impact agri-production.
In the knock-on effect. Now, with respect to our Purdue students, could we ask, one, just a brief introduction as you wish, comfortable, and then two, maybe start a share. We're going to have a wonderful discussion. Who wish to go first? No? Flip a coin? All right.
As Dr. Dorman introduced me, my name's Christina. I'm a Purdue University student at their vet school there, and I actually did my undergrad at Purdue, so I've been there since 2012. And from the food waste perspective, I've been at Purdue during pivotal times of that. We started out with, you go to all you can eat dining courts, and there's food waste everywhere there, and they gave us trays. You could fit 3 full plates and a dessert plate on that, and no one really needs that much food. And then after a year of being there, they took away trays, and I could really see I have 1 plate, that's all you get, or you can go back for more, but it really helps control waste in that aspect. So I've been able to see how Purdue is really trying to reduce use, and they're working on redistributing, losing local food banks, and also recycling. A lot of the food waste goes to the local sewage. I don't know all the science behind that, but somehow the food turns into energy for them.
Energy and nutrients.
That's right.
All right. Ms. Sarah? Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. So as Dr. Dorman introduced, I am Sarah. I'm also a fourth-year veterinary student at Purdue. I've not spent as much time about Purdue, but in general with students, we do struggle a lot with food waste, just as far as our upbringing, it not being such a pivotal issue in the things that we talk about. We talk about recycling aluminum cans, but we don't talk about the food that we scrape into the trash cans or other ways that we do that. So it's definitely something that at the student level is really difficult to address because we're not well equipped in knowledge. Just based on upbringing and our cultural views of it. So there's definitely a lot of changes that we need in order to make those improvements.
Yeah, I've always found it funny how you watch someone go out of their way for a plastic bottle, but then they'll throw away a whole loaf of bread without thinking about it. Yeah. So recycling is, like said, ingrained in our culture, but food waste is definitely not.
I'd like to add something really quickly to that. In the cost of living in the Cayman Islands is very, very high, and the cost of food is very high. So hopefully that will preempt some of us from tossing food. I know I make a really big effort to reuse everything the next day for lunch or the next night. So we have to think about that. But also it's about roughly, I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but we're talking about what you just mentioned, the integrated solid waste management project that we have going on, which looks at the entire issue of waste here and including making energy from this kind of food waste in the future. But normally it's about 20% for municipal food waste stream is with discarded food items.
I'm glad you mentioned that before I asked Dr. Dorman to be back in at some point, if it's okay, Mr. Nancy, to talk about not just the anaerobic digestion, but the whole issue of taking food and creating energy, as we've seen in other jurisdictions. Not just the cost of doing it, but the cost of not doing it. And will our new facility be provisioned to accommodate that? Hopefully some of the things, because we talk about gasification and the like, but This is just talk. Dr. Dorman.
Yeah, I wanted to weigh in on something that Christina touched on in terms of the trayless cafeterias and whatnot. In the Western world, or in more developed countries, the food waste issue is more a problem of overconsumption. Whereas in the developing world, it's more losses at the production end of the cycle. So it's really important to point that out. This further complicates the problem of food waste because you're addressing multiple stakeholders with losses at every aspect of the food supply chain. So one of the major things that we need to be thinking about in the Cayman Islands is focusing on our consumption of food in terms of portion control, things like leftovers, utilizing leftovers, being more smart when we're shopping in our fridges and our pantries before we actually go to the grocery store, making a list to make sure that we don't buy more than we need. And something that I found in my research, which was quite interesting, is that apparently as humans, we don't like to see white space in our refrigerators. So we tend to like to fill our fridges. And then what that does is that reduces visibility. So you can't actually see how much food you have in your fridge. You don't remember what you put at the back of the fridge. So oftentimes that's what ends up getting moldy or spoiling. So a lot of this has to do with human behaviors and building better habits. And so I think we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But the trayless cafeteria is something that I've seen a lot in university settings that's been changing the way we think about food and pre-portioning food as opposed to having a free-for-all. So that's a really good concept that's happening.
Well, when we come back from our break, I'll try to sing it. Let's talk about food base, baby. No, seriously. That's the best I can sing. This notion of food and how we approach it, from the production to the consumption. Invite you to listen and share along and see how it could impact your life and how you can be impactful. And as we go about not just recycling the plastics and aluminum, but how we look at food and the cost and the impact on our environment. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Ambitious, determined, beautiful, and unapologetically uncompromising. You have set the bar high. Now let High Fashion and Design Studio take you to the next level. Full service hair and nail salon carrying the top designer brands. Calvin Klein, 9 West. Shoes, clothing, accessories, quality dressmaking, tailoring, and custom designs. High Fashion and Design Studio, located in Cayman Trade Center, 199 Eastern Avenue, across from Bananas Restaurant. Call 945-4415 to book your high fashion and design experience today. Be bold, be true, be you.
Put a brand new 2020 Chevrolet Equinox Premier under your tree this Christmas and enjoy the most equipped SUV in its class with foot sensor liftgate, four-wheel drive, panoramic sunroof, ventilated leather seats, wireless phone charge, parking assist, front collision sensor, rear vision camera, remote vehicle start, and a 1.5-liter turbo engine. Whew. And the best part is, buy now and pay nothing until next year. Visit the showroom on Owen Roberts Drive for a test drive or visit advancedchevrolet.com to start enjoying your Christmas early.
Did you know that CPR Cayman is now a registered non-profit organization? The government is spending a lot of money on their campaign, so we need your help to get the word out to as many people as we can. You can make a donation via our website cprcayman.com or call us at 938-5876. This is our first People's Initiated referendum for a decision that will affect everyone's future. It's your vote, your future. So make a decision based on fact. You deserve the whole truth.
Le Classique's tent sale is this Saturday at the Trilogy Building on Mary Street, 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. Ladies and men's footwear up to 75% off. Clearance prices as low as $10. Don't miss the shoe-tacular deals at Le Classique's tent sale this Saturday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Trilogy Building on Mary Street.
But I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And as we talk about the One Health Initiative and celebrating One Health Day, which annually on November 3rd, we have truly the privilege of in our studio, the guests and the company of Miss Nancy Bernard, Dr. Samantha Dorman. Of course, if you're looking at our YouTube channel and you say, "What? Who's that handsome fellow over there?" No, not me. It's the guy. Mr. Nash joins us. It's so cool, calm, collected. You didn't realize that he was, even working today. And of course, always grateful for any of our students to join us. So from Purdue, with Sarah together with Miss Christina joining us. And I share that because, as Dr. Dorman was saying earlier, the things that we study, whether in primary school or in postgraduate studies, we tend to take down on board and influence our lives and maybe serve as examples. As we get into some of the experiences that we've seen within our university settings, the cafeterias, even our own lifestyles, Mr. Nash, though, there were some things that we wanted to delve into before we continue. You will share with us.
You can observe in our communities in some seasons, like mango season, where a whole lot of mangoes are produced locally. And you wonder to yourself, the ones that are not, eating what is done with it. And there lies a great potential in the jurisdiction for agro-processing. There's this mantra that says, eat what you can and can what you can't. And the reality is that we can only eat so much, while there's an abundance of fruit, etc., that exists locally. And so I think the time has come where we really need to expand the value chain of agriculture to look at how much more we can go into agro-processing too. So when we have all these foods and we don't eat them, instead of it being waste, we need to look how we can make the jams, the pickles, the jellies, etc. We can expand it to even look at not just fruits but animals, where one of the things that we have been observing, and we're developing a concept paper as I speak on spent layers, age layers in our society. Right now there's over 10,000 layers, local layers of 2018. And you say to yourself, what happened to these layers when they are past their productive age, when they're out of their prime? The reality is that there's not really a policy on the disposal of these birds. Many of them are just let go wild into the environment, and the impact on agriculture is very significant, because when it has become a nuisance to the farming community with these birds now seeing farms as food targets. But there's a great potential that exists with these birds. If we estimate that over 8,000 pounds of meat could be harvested from these birds, as stewing hens, if we should properly, have a policy where farmers can bring them to a center and we can grow them, clean them, and then this could help to feed the destitute among us, etc. So there's great potential where we can actually turn possible waste into good stuff.
Dr. Norman?
Yeah, Mr. Nash spoke about agro-processing from the production side. But speaking to the consumer, there's also a concept of speaking in regards to fruits and vegetables of ugly foods. So foods that get left behind at the supermarket because they might not be the right shape or the right size or the right color, but they're still perfectly fresh and nutritious. So those foods can be used for things like stews and soups and juices and jams and jellies. So it's important that our consumers think about that when they're going into the grocery stores. I know at the production end as well, especially in developing countries, you'll see tons and tons of produce that's left behind in the fields because they're not the right size, or they might not be the right color or something like that, something to do with aesthetics. But that's another area where food loss and food waste needs to be targeted, and that speaks to what our standards of preference and what we deem to be healthy, nutritious food, and not confusing that with food that's still fresh and still edible, but it might just not look appealing to us. So I know that the supermarkets have a huge advantage on this because a lot of them provide food in-house. You know, they cook food there for sale. They also have fresh juices available. I'm also seeing pre-cut foods as well in a lot of the supermarkets. So some of those foods that might look ugly to the consumer can be used for those options. So that's something I wanted to throw out there.
If I may then ask, from that perspective, is it then that one, not just a lack of awareness and education on our part, but the will on our part, big P political, small P political, if I might, following one of our discussions in the early days, some years back, speaking with my mother and talking about their mantra, growing up without refrigeration, growing up in a society where it was subsistence for a great deal, and you ate today because you prepared for it, and then the actual preparation of that meal was an all-day task, whether the fish was out of the sound, the provisions from the grounds and the like. Took that concept to mangoes, as you shared, Mr. Nash, and I'm not a farmer, not a biologist or any which way. Let's put it in a nice Ziploc bag, this resealable one, cut mango, put it in, mark the date, and to see how long it would last, you know, in just a simple space in the freezer. And from one season to the next, or in a year, it was still good, still tasty, still fresh, not as hand-picked, but there was nothing wrong with it. You know, that was under less than ideal conditions. So if we were able to do that with the technologies that we have, we could extend the useful life of it. But it comes back then to us. Before I ask Ms. Nance and Dr. Dorman, as students, as you look at your studies and the like, share with particularly the workings of your group, but of what you've seen so far that could help us to be more informed as to what our impact, as small as we think it is, how it compounds the problem, as it were.
Yeah, of course. So what, from readings and studies, they've shown that students are, like you said, are kind of apathetic towards food waste. It's either not my problem or I don't know the problem, so they aren't concerned about it. And I know, again, speaking off experience with Purdue, for like a certain week, they made all students throw their trash, like their food, in one bin, and so they just compiled the food so students could actually see how much they were wasting, and that was kind of like raising awareness. And another thing is, you mentioned before, is like you have to eat everything on your plate, but the thing is, like, but then we don't eat leftovers, so you're still throwing away a lot of waste there. It's just hard, I think, to get it's got to be ingrained from a younger age to get people to really realize how much they're wasting.
Equally, though, as you were sharing, I was just thinking of what a friend I shared, Dr. Norman, the information you gave, and just recently, so today's Friday, so in this week, something he did way back when, and to see whether it would be any change in perception. So, the two things. One, it's become much easier when you go for takeout to take your dish. I do not want whatever that thing is. Here's my reusable container. I'm asking for more. Just put it in this and I can take it. Stores easier. Increasing restaurants are becoming okay with that. They're willing for you to bring your container within reason. Still, some were like, what's wrong with you? But the other thing he did, he would go in and he told me about the experience years ago. I would like to order this, but bring me half and box the other half. And the biggest discussion, put it that way, ensued. Well, we don't do that. What is that? I don't want anything different. Just give me half. I'm not on a diet. And he did it again just this week. A different place, but similar sort of response. However many years later. So the notion that he is not able to comfortably consume that quantity, but wants to save it so that it can become the lunch and then the dinner. Now, is that education and the mindset that not doing anything less or any more, I just want it to be positioned in such a way that I can easier or more easily deal with it? You try that, Ms. Nancy?
I'd like to respond to that. I mean, I think it comes down to education, and like the students are saying, apathy, which across the board, it doesn't matter which ministry, department or field you're in, apathy is the biggest danger to all of us, all humankind. But at the end of the day, it's what the consumer demands. So once the consumer speaks out loud enough and clear enough and says, you know, I'm paying this good money for this meal, if that's what they say they want, I think they'll start to listen, especially with social media and people comparing notes on which restaurants and food service providers are responding to them.
But then does that have to? We got a break, sir? Okay. Say again? Okay. Sorry. See, I'm so used to Susan's voice. Sorry, Dr. Gillian. I heard this thing and it sounds so masculine and scary. No, I'm listen, I'm not just being mischievous today. I'm always grateful. And this sort of discussion, I think, helps us to appreciate how what we do, as simple as we think it is, how it can affect the consequences of not just our sustainability. Maybe I could substitute the word or survival and the notion. And when we come back from our news break, could we ask about not just some of the things that are happening globally and the consequences of some of their actions, but maybe possibly what we could be doing locally. Unfortunately, I think some have shared the perspective that, oh, you're a small place, nothing you do really makes a difference. I think it's, couldn't be further from the truth. All right. As we go to the break, Dr. Thomas, what else would you want to share with us that you think would give our listeners an enticing view to return after the news?
Well, put me on the spot.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I think the biggest issue is apathy and unawareness. And that's something that we need to be more conscious of and use it to help create solutions. In today's Compass, you will see a little flyer about One Health Day with a graphic on how we can be considering our global food print, because food waste and food loss has significant consequences for our overall environmental footprint on the globe. And there's some tips on there in terms of how you think about food waste even before you prepare your food or purchase it, how you eat in terms of portions and whatnot, and then how you can save money. So
that's always good.
Saving money is definitely something that we all want to do and are interested in hearing more about. So check out today's Compass on page 5 for that flyer.
Be the frugal connoisseur. Mr. Nash, any quick thoughts before the break, sir?
Well, maybe now on speaking after the break, one of the things that I think in agriculture that we ought to look at is also our crop production choices. You know, what do we farm? Is there a demand? When do we, farm these different crops? I think here lies a potential to prevent a lot of food waste.
Right. So not only eat what you grow and grow what you eat, but looking at the overall impact. All right. Let's ask about that. Let's ask about the approach to One Health as well, Dr. Samantha. Is it as holistic? What does it encompass and the like? We're going to pause and take our headline news at 1, but when we come back, more talk today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Bracken, Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news.
Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
The Auditor General flags areas of concern in the public education system in a report released on Thursday that reviews how efficiently the Ministry of Education is using its resources to maximize student achievement. Sue Winspear says despite education being a priority, there is, quote, no overarching strategic plan that sets out the goals, objectives, and outcomes that are expected to be achieved. In news elsewhere, 4 people were killed and 4 were wounded at a Halloween night party shooting at a large rental home in a wealthy San Francisco Bay Area community, police said Friday. The shooting in Orinda, a city of about 20,000 near Oakland, happened at a party attended by 100 people, Police Chief David Cook told the East Bay Times. He said officers responded to a call at about 10:45 p.m. Thursday and found 4 people dead at the scene. Michael Wong, who owns the home, said he rented it out to a woman through Airbnb for what the woman said would be a family reunion for a dozen people. Google is buying Fitbit for about $2.1 billion, enabling the internet company to step back into a hotly contested market for smartwatches and health trackers. Fitbit is a pioneer in wearable fitness technology, but it's been shredded by that competition. Google, meanwhile, has been developing a Wear OS software for other manufacturers to build wearable devices, but they haven't gained much traction in the face of competition from Fitbit, Apple, Samsung, and others. The deal to buy Fitbit could give Google a needed boost. Those are your latest updates here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Afternoon, welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks so much for joining us and allowing us to try to expand the scope of our discussions. Hopefully not for you to feel only empowered, but to be encouraged to have the courage to move forward with conviction to ensure that you recognize our actions impact and affect all and sundry alike. Ms. Dancer Bernard, thank you so much, ma'am, for helping us to facilitate this discussion and to recognize that our simple examples not influence only what our children do, our neighbors, our colleagues, but sometimes, our own lives are shaped and guided by those conscious choices.
And I'm so proud of our One Health group in the Cayman Islands for getting this started in the last few years. They've been amazing, having a seminar. I believe the 3rd annual is coming up. We just had the 4th annual is coming up in 2020. So thank you very much for them. But it really is a linkage between, health, human health, animal health, agriculture, and the environment, and that's how we all have to think of living today, because they're all so closely linked. And before the break, one of the things you asked me was talking about anaerobic digestion and getting some energy and some use from the food waste. As you know, we have the integrated solid waste management system coming online shortly. The ministry's been working very, very hard with the preferred bidder for many years on this. And one of the things that we're looking at in the long term might be that, but immediately it won't be, because we also have to look at the size and the country. So while we're going to have waste to energy feeding into CUC and the grid, it won't be including the food waste. But there's other things we can do at the top of the chain, which is we have our sort of our pyramid. So you refuse, you try and refuse, talking about the young ladies here with the tray versus the little plate. Refuse what you don't want. That goes for all products, not just food. Reduce. Okay, so even if you have to get it, do you need that much? Reduce. Reuse what you can't reuse it. And then whatever you can't reuse, then go to recycling it. And then at the very, very end, you throw it away, but it won't be now thrown away. It'll be used for energy with the new system in Cayman. So that's kind of the background where we're at with that.
Okay, well, in addition to Miss Nancy, Dr. Dorman, Mr. Nash, and our Purdue student interns, Miss Sarah and Miss Christina, let me just ask, as we just quickly go into the discussion, does this all come down to the individual consumer, let's say at the restaurant, at the grocery, being courageous enough to say, let's say you order breakfast and it comes with this, and this. You say, no, please don't give me 4 slices of bread, I only want 1. Exactly. Or don't give me the mushrooms that I need, don't substitute, I just don't want.
Or the little packets, or the little reusable, not reusable, sorry, the single-use plastic little packets of mayonnaise and things, like use a bottle.
Yeah. Because there are many of us who don't, we don't want to be a bother. We just take it and we quietly, discard it, not understanding that it's not just, 5 mushrooms or whatever it is. It's 5 mushrooms times 5,000 people over 50 years or what have you. Is it courage? Because sometimes we inadvertently offend people by refusing something. Not Dr. Dorman, because she's always so polite and professional, I tell you.
I think it's a combination. One of the things about food waste is that it's a very complex issue. That's why it lends itself so well to a One Health approach. You have multiple stakeholders, from producers on the farms to distributors, to people who transport the food, retailers, and then multiple consumers, be it kids, be it people in the workplace with cafeterias in their offices, or just households. So along each aspect of the food supply chain, you have wastage. And so while that's a negative, the positive is that there's ways to intervene. There's intervention points at every aspect of the food supply chain. There's no quick fixes. There's a lot of sub-problems within the problem of food waste, like climate change, growing population rates, food insecurity, obesity, and other non-communicable diseases. And that's why we need all these multiple stakeholders to collaborate and tackle the problem together, which is basically the ethos of One Health, coming together, recognizing that there is a challenge and that we all contribute to the challenge, but we all contribute to the solutions as well.
Then let's ask then from that perspective of the One Health Working Group and the notion that some listeners may think, well, that's just policy advisors and physicians and food purveyors and what have you, but how does that impact me? Who's involved? How can I get involved? And what does it mean? Is it as inclusive and as exhaustive as we can make it? Dr. Norman?
Well, being aware is the first point, which is why we're so thankful that we can come on the radio today to kind of just bring awareness to the topic. Christina touched on food measurement, and that's one of the best ways to conceptualize the problem of food waste. You don't really understand something until you can see it and quantify it. And so we actually went into one of the primary schools this year after lunch and weighed the food that was left over, that was going into the garbage. From one lunch, we got 27 pounds of food, which doesn't really sound like a lot. But if you think about 5 lunches a week for the school year, you're looking at almost 5,000 pounds of food waste for the year from just one primary school.
And if you were to take that over X students and then break it down on average
per person,
then that can become hundreds of pounds or what have you.
Right. So educating our students is really important, It's been shown that households with young children are the main culprits of food waste in the developing world.
Wow.
So our student population is really one that we need to target in terms of getting them to realize that they can go back for more food and not heap up their plates, and that leftovers are a good thing, and just getting them to be ambassadors as well for recycling, not just plastics and cardboard or whatnot, but also their perception towards food and how they consume.
That perception towards food, forgive me for this toss. I like to, at times, my friends are so loving and accommodating. They let me use them as experimental labs at times. So my question was, how does affluence affect your perception and your amount of food waste? So, and I was wondering, is there any data to substantiate how that plays into it? Dr. Norman?
So a lot of the problems that we're facing in our current era are linked to affluence, overconsumption, growing population sizes, and urbanization, which is people moving from more rural areas into cities. And if you look at non-communicable diseases, and they call them the diseases of wealth. So they're all really linked. So human behaviors, concepts, perception, habits, that's really a big target area for topics such as these.
Okay. Now, from that, and certainly want to invite our students to talk about their perspective, because you are not just the future, you're the now, as it were. You're the future policy advisors and parliamentarians. You're the individuals who... Yes, looking at you. Dr. Dorman, would you help us in the segue to get them in, or can I go straight to it? What do you think? Their perspective on what you're doing and what you're observing, to expound further as you were sharing initially.
Go for it.
Go for it, yeah. Hit one.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about Purdue's One Health Club and some of the projects that you've done and how you've been creating awareness about One Health and One Health Day in general.
So at Purdue, we have a One Health Club. It's only been in existence for 6 years, so we're still pretty new and budding on the amount of outreach that they're able to do. and just the people that we're able to interact with. So a lot of it is just starting with the students that we have in the class. So starting small with the people we have easiest access to. One Health is the very all-inclusive approach to everything, and really everything falls under the category of One Health from some perspective or other. So we really just try to reach out to people as best we can to help them to understand the importance of that. Some of the fun things that we do is that we're here discussing things for One Health Day, but we actually turn One Health Day into One Health Week. So we make it an entire week that we do different trivia questions, so people can kind of have something that's interactive to get an idea of different areas of One Health, whether or not they think it's environmentally related, veterinarians, human physicians. We do different things there. We bring in different speakers to talk about diseases and pets healing people and different environmental aspects. And we actually pair it with a university's One Health lecture that they do annually for the last 5 years. So we have one big lecture that's not just for the veterinary school and our faculty, but we invite it to the entire university and the community. It's still been a challenge to get people from outside of our school to come to attend, but it's growing in its amount of people that come. So we've talked about different things about like antimicrobial resistance, but we've actually had a talk a couple years ago where someone came in and talked about the food supply in schools. So we have had some exposure to talking about the difficulty in some areas getting the right kind and the right amount of food that they need, but also how much food that we actually have wasted in schools. So there's the whole spectrum depending on where you are of the difficulty of getting things in and whatnot. We do like simulations of disease outbreaks, so that kind of helps us get those ideas, but we also work with the community when they come to our open house events. We talk about like hand washing, and we do the little experiments with the kids with gel that glows in the dark so that they can see how well they're washing their hands and how well they're washing germs off and those kinds of things. So we really try and have tried to continue to expand what we can do for our community and just to help people understand the One Health concept.
Excellent.
From that, then, within the Cayman context, as we continue education, the awareness, the potential for new policies and initiatives, to what extent, as a community, are we able to touch and engage as much of us? Is it the households as well as the commercial purveyors? What are we doing to make sure more of us are included in this initiative?
So probably the biggest thing that we focus on each year is our One Health Symposium. As Ms. Nancy said, we're looking at our 4th year come 2020. And this year we're actually going to be inviting the public. We spent the last 3 years sensitizing healthcare providers and students in the healthcare industries. And now we feel it's time to invite our general population to have that continuing education exposure and to be involved in that big awareness campaign. We've also been working closely with our tertiary students at the local veterinary school, medical school, and School of Nursing. This year, the School of Nursing invited us to take part in their open house at UCCI, and we were able to have a booth where we were able to talk to people about the One Health concept. We made little bookmarks that we gave out to kids primarily, and people had a lot of questions. So it's more just getting into the community, coming on the radio, and just creating as much awareness as we can. We're also meeting on a quarterly basis to talk about various policies and interventions that we're working on. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes as well. So it's quite a complex approach, but that's what we need to address all the different areas and concerns.
Well, Stancy, if I may then, when we look at the collective will and action of our communities, many of us, unfortunately, look to the policy advisors and the politicians to guide in this. But statistically, I just want to make sure that I don't speak it improperly. The statistics that were provided talking about, almost 2 billion tons of food that are wasted globally, almost $3 billion in the cost of food waste, the 500 million sort of tons to greenhouse gases globally. Those are pretty big numbers.
They are. You touched on something really, really important.
Just one thing?
Just the one thing. I'm a firm believer, and our students here mentioned apathy earlier. I'm a firm believer that, this policy doesn't take place on the 5th floor of the government admin building in a capsule. It is engineered and agitated for by the people of the Cayman Islands and wherever you live in the world, and sometimes fed through the politicians, sometimes represented separately. But then, whenever policy is developed by my colleague Mr. Nash or others in our ministry, other ministries, it's always with the people. It always has to contain public consultation and input and everything else. So it really is a sort of a document, a way of being by us. So that's the first thing. Secondly, coming on board just now, listening, tuning in, I just want to do a visual picture of the tripartite that is environment, health and agriculture in terms of One Health. I'm not with the Agriculture Ministry, I'm with the Environment and Health Ministry, but, you take farming, you take our meat loving, and I tried to be vegetarian for a year, I lasted a year, but my gosh, I love my Cayman style beef, right? So you take that and you take all the parameters that Mr. Nash can speak more to about farming, and specifically farming cows for beef, okay? And how then, going over from agriculture to environment, does that affect our environment and the known causal factors between beef farming and ozone layer and everything else around that? Then you take what my colleague Dr. Dorman talked about, which was health. The NCDs, the non-communicable diseases, the greatest threat in particular to the world, but the Cayman Islands, the top 4 are NCDs, and that a lot of that is because of consuming too much of that beef. So again, it's that policy thing, it's that awareness thing that happens where, do we need to consume this 5 days a week, or is it like the old time Cayman I always go back to where, it's a special occasion, and is that better for our bodies? Yes, it is. It's been proven time and time again. So it's all connected. We can't just look at this as a health thing or an environment thing or an agriculture thing. It's all interrelated.
Is it then that we almost come in full circle? The practices of our ancestors, we're now employing, given a fancy terms, and they're like, now we've got the final break of our segment. This will be one of many conversations that will take place over the ensuing years. But we're going to come back, maybe recap, and hopefully emphasize some of the things that are important, and maybe a few takeaways that we can employ. Please join us after the break.
Logic presents The Change Project, a campaign that highlights the reality of cyberbullying and the mental health impact it has on teens, parents, teachers, and families. Few people speak up when they witness cyberbullying, but we can change that together. We can strive to make a difference in our community by promoting responsible internet and social media use in the Cayman Islands and beyond. Will you pledge to make a safer, friendlier world online? Visit thechangeprojectcayman.com and take the pledge today. Proudly presented and supported by Logic.
I'm starting my shopping early this year. What you want for Christmas?
All I really want for Christmas is for my packages to arrive on time.
Plan ahead to get your shipments into Seaboard Marine on time and avoid the holiday rush. Check out their great less-than-container shipment rates. Seaboard saves you time, money, and convenience with consolidation and repacking options available. Take a load off Santa this holiday season. Shop, ship, and save on your small packages with Seaboard Marine. Give us a call at 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com/grand-cayman for quotes or additional details.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
This referendum is bigger than the port itself. This is going to teach our people that, yes, we can make decisions. We can stop roads from being closed. We can stop markets from being developed. We can get jobs. We can be trained. Never again will we be second-class citizens in our own country begging at the doors of the NAU. I implore you to come out and vote in this referendum. We can change our circumstances forever.
RC Fusion featuring Billboard pop hit songs and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion, brought to you by Merengue Town. Take a walk on the wild side. It's time to feel the rhythm, time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town. RC Fusion.
RC Fusion.
RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Tasty Patties. Baked fresh every 30 minutes. Available at Tortuga locations, the Patty Express Industrial Park, and Bake It and Take It on Eastern Avenue. Get tasty now. Yar. Brought to you by Pirates Week, the Cayman Islands National Festival. Celebrating 42 years of fantasy, history, and fun.
RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Nathan General Maintenance and Construction. You break it, they fix it. Call the General for a free quote. 917-7586.
RC Fusion.
Do you own a Cayman parrot?
They are a protected species, but people have been allowed to keep them as pets for years.
It's opened the door to nest robbing and illegal trade of our national bird.
We need to stop it, but we should also give current Cayman parrot owners a chance to keep their bird legally.
If you own a Cayman parrot, you have until February 29th next year to register it with the Department of Environment.
Find out more about parrot registration by calling 949-8469 or emailing doe@gov.ky. Let's protect our Cayman parrots.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks so much for listening. And certainly, I really, honestly, very grateful for an opportunity to have a discussion like this, because it isn't just academic. It isn't just for the intellectual. It's about how we, as the individual, can make an immediate change that is significant. Whether we look at it collectively or whether you just say, you know what, I just do it. Now I'm not wasting as much. I have a few more dollars in my pocket. I'm not as concerned of that negative consequence of dumping the food outside because it's going to waste. So to Ms. Nancy Bernard and Dr. Samantha Dormer, thank you very much. Ms. Nash, certainly appreciative, and to our Purdue students for joining us. Thank you very much, Ms. Christina and Ms. Sarah, for being a part of the discussion. I know, Dr. Dorman, fun. I mean, there's only a few minutes of fun left. Share with us as we wrap up this initial discussion on the whole idea of food waste as we celebrate One Health Day.
I think it's important to remind the listening public that when we waste food, we're not just wasting the food that you see in front of you. You're wasting all the resources that have gone into producing that product. The labor that went into it, the wages that those people were paid, the nutrient loss, is huge. The water that went into it, the land that was used for it, whether it's crops or livestock. And so it may seem, it's easy to be dismissive because you think, oh, it's just food. But it's more than that as well. The water footprint, the nutrients, the contribution to food insecurity. It's crazy to think that all the statistics out there, the 1.3 billion tons of food that's wasted every year, but we still have so much poverty and hunger globally. And if we could only just save a quarter of that, we could feed, millions of people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. So it's really something to ponder and not dismiss.
And there's something that, although it may have been a few years back, we saw the warnings in relation to romaine lettuce. And a lot of us are very conscious. I mean, we want to eat more greens, the roughage, the health benefits, and then a potential impact for E. coli or some other thing. And yet, whether it's the cross-contamination, whether it's during the production and the like. I'm going to ask Mr. Nash, but if Ms. Sarah or Ms. Christina wanted to weigh in on the idea of, from the agriculture perspective, and how we make food safe to cultivate, to harvest, to distribute, to serve, to consume. I mean, come on, Ms. Christina. What do you think? Let me then not make it so esoteric. What do you think then of the individual who's now looking at food security as Dr. Dorman shared, and appreciating that for those of us who live in less urban areas, we can, instead of having this swath of nice green space out back that just is an expense, we're now creating this green space and have grow boxes, and it's our vegetables, our herbs and the like. Then when you compare that to the individual who's in a more of an urban space and They've just got a balcony, maybe 3 or 4 feet, and they can't grow their tomatoes, or they can't. What are your thoughts? No?
No.
Not easy. Okay. That'll be your assignment for later. Mr. Nash, what about you?
Well, as the public will shortly realize, maybe in the next financial year, the ministry will be putting out a food and nutrition security policy, and that will be a game changer for the jurisdiction. It's my personal belief outside of policy that if you grow your own food, you tend to waste it less.
Yeah,
it's my personal belief.
So if you work with something like your own gift,
you know what it took to produce it.
Yep. So being a farmer myself, what I grow, I don't want any of it to waste.
Yeah.
Even let's look at tomatoes. Even the tomato plant itself, I want to put it back to mulch the soil to enrich it. I've had the privilege to visit maybe close to 30 farms on the island, and what I can say that the farmers are very resilient. Most of these farms exist in the backyards of the farmers, and if the wider country or island could buy into the concept of let's grow in our backyard, these little spaces, it could be 2 pots, but I'm going to grow a seasoned pepper tree. You just look at the reduction in waste, in terms of food, but also the economic cost, the money that you'd save that could be used on other things.
If I could ask then, and I recognize both the question but also the timing, the idea of a communal garden. So you have a subdivision where we all live, and there is a public open space. I've championed this with many in a number of occasions and got all sorts of reasonable objections. We farm it out. We each take a little grow box and we plant something we shared up. But then not just the pests, the iguanas and the like, but the people from the neighborhood, from the wider community coming in and helping themselves to what they themselves have not contributed. Is it then that we need to change our cultural ethos, that we no longer take what's not ours? If you know what I'm saying. We don't help ourselves to. Is that a problem with what potentially prevents us from doing more of that, these community gardens?
I don't think it's a fear of people predalassing or farm theft. I observe a model in Gary, Indiana, where a church group was involved, because within the church is a structure, there's a community, and so the church was leading the initiative of a community garden. And what they did, they wrote to the local municipality, and they got these blight areas, and they turned them into community orchards. Yeah. And what they did with the fruits, they donated to the community and the people that come to church. Now, when the community at large buy into this concept, the issue of farm theft becomes a non-issue, because eventually you're going to get. So people take different turns, and they would come, they would irrigate, they would mulch, etc. So I think that's a way we have got to educate our people that use your backyard space, not just growing some flowers that you can't eat, but grow something that can go into your kitchen.
Definitely. Yeah.
In the last year or two, my husband and I developed 3 grow beds, and we started planting. They're a bit bare now. We've got to do them again for season. But again, we have a compost bin, and then you just feel so much better knowing that that's not adding to the waste stream, that 15-20% of not just food waste, but the scraps, the ends of things that you don't normally eat, like the ends of cauliflower and stuff, but it's going in to mulch up and enrich your soil and then grow your things. So we did, in West Bay, we did cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce, a few other things, but it was good.
Education, and I think your example, I've seen a similar one. I concluded that it was the driving force, so in this case, the respect for the institutions of the church that allowed it. I've seen other communities in the U.S. primarily that have done it, but even in very urban areas in Europe, where, for one of the better words, a community garden. As we close the discussion, any sort of parting words from our students, and then of course, Ms. Nancy, of course, you. No? Yes? Maybe so? No? All right. Well, thank you. Next time, don't be so talkative. Okay. But thank you very much, and thanks for your interest and passion, and through your research and continuing efforts, we'll see more. Ms. Nancy.
Just to say thank you very much to my colleagues. They are doing a great job with One Health, and Ministry for Health and also Environment is very, very happy to be aligned with them with all the work that they're doing, and we keep growing bigger and stronger and just having people ban the apathy and get involved in coming up with a solution.
Indeed. And if you wish again, Dr. Dorman.
Yeah, just thank you as well to everyone who joined us today and for the support from Miss Nancy and her ministry. I just want to encourage everyone to check out today's compass on page 5 so that they can see our little flyer with some quick tips on how to reduce food waste. And also on Sunday, which is One Health Day, we're going to be putting a post on our Facebook page, One Health Cayman, which will have a game on there to test people's knowledge of how they can preserve food, like what types of foods can be frozen to extend their shelf life, and also just general tips on how to reduce food waste as a consumer. So thank you for having us, and we'll see you again soon.
Very soon. Thanks very much. I really appreciate this, because food security is something that I think we don't recognize how important it is. We complain about, ship can't get in because of the rough seas. But what if there's something more significant? All right, you guys have a wonderful, blessed, productive, and enjoyable weekend. Ms. Nancy, you too. Great. Ms. Nancy, you too. And to our listeners, we're going to pause and take a break. When we return, Mr. Aldrich Lindsay will be our guest. Let's have some fun with him. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Depending on the severity of a storm, it is possible that your home's plumbing or septic tank could be damaged. Hazard Management Cayman Islands recommends using a garbage bag to line at least 2 5-gallon containers with tight-fitting covers to use as a temporary toilet. Be sure to include personal sanitation supplies in your emergency kit, such as moist towelettes, feminine hygiene products, garbage bags, and rubber gloves. For more useful hurricane preparedness tips, visit the Water Authority's website at www.waterauthority.ky or follow us on social media.
Saturday, November 2nd, Breeze Fusion 2019.
Are you ready? Yeah.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCBO.
Yes, Cayman Islands, it's back. Your chance to be healthy. Your chance to give back.
Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
I like to move it. You like to move it.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Taking place at Smith Bacadere, starting at 6:15 a.m.
For over 100 years, more than 5.8 million people across the Americas and the Caribbean have placed their trust in Pan American Life Insurance Group. We have delivered on our promise and have proven that we're more than just an insurance company, we're family. To learn more about our first-in-class group health and employee benefit solutions, please visit Pan American Life Insurance Company of the Cayman Islands at Unit 221, Cannon Place East, North Sound Road, Grand Cayman, or contact us at 949-8304. You can also visit us online at www.palig.com. Pan American Life. People you can trust for life.
The government claims the cruise berthing facility won't cost us a penny. It will be paid for by the cruise passenger who use it, not by our people or our government.
The fact is, you will be paying. Because government is going to give the consortium development team, led by Royal Caribbean and Carnival, a portion of the cruise revenue that is currently being banked by government.
What's more, we will be repaying them
$450 million.
$250 million more
than what the facility even costs.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
This is our new chicken cheese pop. Popcorn chicken meets fried cheese bites, breaded with the 11 herbs and spices of our secret recipe. The collision of flavors that triggers your true cravings. Escape through indulgence with a new chicken cheese pop from KFC. It's finger-licking good.
Available for a limited time at KFC Shedden Road and KFC Baytown Plaza. Dine in or drive through.
Feed Our Future is pleased to present
the annual Island Roast
at the beach deck at Seafire. It's all going down Saturday, November 2nd. Help to raise funds to feed Cayman's youth and take in delicious Caribbean plates by the top island chefs with performances by Selecta Renegade, Steel Pan with Michael LeMay and Flow Motion. All-inclusive drink and meal tickets. $175 CI available at eventpro.ky. Yes, the annual Island Roast, Saturday, November 2nd at the Sea Fire. Feed our future, solving childhood hunger.
For the record, a fresh approach for information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you.
For the record.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. And Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
The Cayman Islands Conference International Annual 10K Run Walk is back and is celebrating 30 years. Join runners from the Cayman Islands and around the world. 10K Run Walk takes place Sunday, November 17th, starting at 6 a.m. Race officially starts from Walker's Road, the old George Hicks entrance, continues through South Sound, Old Crew Road, Linford Pearson Highway, Smith Road, and ends up at the Cayman Islands Conference office on Walker's Road.
Entry fee, adults, $25.
And $15 for children, including free t-shirt with entry. Part proceeds to the Alzheimer's and Dementia Association of the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands Conference International Annual 10K Run Walk, celebrating 30 years in the Cayman Islands. Sunday, November 17th,
starting at 6 a.m.
Call 949-2647 or 640-2647 for more information.
Special children's race, half mile 4 to 6 years old, 1 mile 7 to 9 years old, 1.5 mile 10 to 12 years old.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks so much. And in all seriousness, man, I'm always so grateful for the team behind the scene that you don't see, whether it's Susan, DJ, Lynn, Paul, Wilson, or any other incredible team that sits at the board and makes it sound great, gives you access, in many cases, unfettered access to our studios so you can call and share your thoughts. Today is DJ Lynn, and for those of you who know, man, I'm really, really inspired by him, admire his approach, and he's fitted right into our team like he's been here as part of the fixture. So DJ Lynn, special shout out to you, man. Thanks very much. Now, in the studio, our discussion now will turn with the good company of Mr. Alric Lindsay. Thanks for joining us, man. Good afternoon to you.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I want to give a shout out to DJ Lynn.
He's amazing, huh? I tell you, man, I just, as I was walking back into the studio, I just, how we very, very, friendly gesture, just touch each other on the shoulder and arm and say, hey, good job. Man, I did that and my hand bounced off that bulging muscle of him. I'm like, my hand feels like it's stinging, man. Come on, DJ Lynn, you got to share the secret as what he's doing, man.
He's probably not wasting any food.
What Susan said her grandmother told her, she's not far from food. But he's converting it into muscle. And I say that partly to joke and to get people to just relax for a second. Smile a little bit more, because there are some serious issues in our country, whether we're talking about the things affecting the legal profession or the wider professional community, or students and their concerns about their grades and graduation, their prospects for education and scholarship, to potential employment, whether after high school or even after postgraduate studies, to the port. And am I to be on a side? What side am I to be on? How do I know what side I'm to be on? Is it then, as you sort of set the stage as to how we have this discussion, I must share that I'm grateful for anybody who's willing to come and, from a considered perspective, share respectfully. Hey, this is what I think. This is why I think what I think. How can I engage you in this discussion? Because if it's only 5 of us, that's 5 more than it was before. But if there's 50,000 of us, why can't we have a voice so that we are heard, but we're willing to also not just speak, listen. So to that, Mr. Lindsay, make the first serve. That was your return volley.
I would say that in Cayman, there are a lot of younger people who express themselves more than our generation and generation before that. I think that people were a bit shy in those times. And I think that with the advent of social media and technology, ease of communication and access to different things, younger people are more active and more willing to share their views immediately. So I think there's probably a difference between the generations. So I think there is probably just a matter of us reaching out to those younger people and encouraging them to come on shows like this to express themselves. So when you talk about all those issues, I'm very certain that a lot of young people have a lot of opinions about, training, promotion and advancement of Caymanians, because they're the people who are coming behind us. And I don't think it's unreasonable for young people to expect us to sort of pave the way and make a plan for them in terms of training and development.
As I listen to you, though, and of course to those who are able to take time, we want to invite you to call and share your thoughts. You can do so on 949-8037, of course, toll free if you want to as well. 1-800-534-8255, and then WhatsApp 925-3261. Aldrich Lindsay sits with us. You mentioned young people in technology, social media, and the relative ease, perhaps, it is for some to use that platform in order to share a thought. Now, with younger people, or with the young people specifically, and their seemingly willingness, eagerness, and ability to share their perspective, is it then that we who are not necessarily considered the younger people category, those of us who are the policymakers and the politicians and the parents even, are we appreciating that they are not only exercising their voice, but they have a voice that needs to be encouraged to be heard? And so when they do, we castigate them, whether it's on the port, the environment, education, infrastructure, whatever that thing is, they're making their voices heard. They're organizing themselves, forming petitions, whatever that thing is. And we're saying, wait a minute, what are you talking about? You can't even vote. Wait a minute, you're not even wet behind the ears, and be very disparaging as opposed to be embracing.
Yeah, I think it probably comes from that whole idea of children should be seen and not heard. So young people are obviously aware of that, and I think that you're probably right in indicating that perhaps we need to do more outreach and invite them to share the space with us, because they are going to occupy the space that we're in now. So that's why it's important for us to reach out to them, to give them the environment and to give them the platform to express themselves.
Well, if you don't mind me including us, not just you, but me too, in that young people category, if that would be okay. Because in a sense, God's willing, we may get another 100 years. No man's promised tomorrow. So what are we doing now to make it better for us today and for tomorrow? Quick short break. When we come back, take us on a path that we can have a very engaging, meaningful discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after.
BritK protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after.
Visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
BritK, where people come first.
Ambitious, determined, beautiful, and unapologetically uncompromising. You have set the bar high. Now let High Fashion and Design Studio take you to the next level. Full service hair and nail salon carrying the top designer brands. Calvin Klein, 9 West. Shoes, clothing, accessories, quality dressmaking, tailoring, and custom design. High Fashion and Design Studio, located in Cayman Trade Center, 199 Eastern Avenue, across from Banana's Restaurant. Call 945-4415 to book your high fashion and design experience today. Be bold, be true, be you.
As a Caymanian, it's very important to me that projects like this are thought of thoroughly before continuing.
My question is, do we need it? And I've not yet been fully convinced that we need it, nor have I been fully convinced that we don't need it. So
what guarantee do we have that these ships are going to continue to come?
Please make the right decision.
Please don't let the catchy songs overturn you. Please support the referendum. Please ensure that you are supporting sustainable tourism, not just money-making tourism.
If the project plans have changed, even though it might be insignificant on paper, it's going to be significant for the environment.
They need to release official information, official facts.
That's where I am right now. I want to know, I want more information on do we need it.
It's your vote, your future. So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
Vehicle owners are reminded that the Department of Vehicle and Driver's Licensing amnesty will expire on November 1st. The amnesty provides a waiver of back fees for unlicensed vehicles. If you plan to keep your vehicle on the road, keep your plates and visit the DVDL. If you are discarding your vehicle, dispose of it at the landfill and drop your plates off at the DVDL. For more information, contact 945-8344 or visit www.dvdl.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, the excellent company of Mr. Alaric Lindsay, as we sit and chat and hopefully encourage others to be willing to be as courageous to more increasingly share our views publicly so that we at least have a meaningful discourse. So, Mr. Lindsay, it's a Friday afternoon and there are many things we could be doing. I don't think any better than being on Talk Today, but that's just me. Your perspective, man. What's important?
Yeah, I just wanted to hang out with DJ Lynn. That's why I'm here. So
I thought it was as much. I thought it was as much. He needed a way into the studio. Make a note.
Yeah. I mean, so, we're talking about young people and, obviously one of the important things is training, development, and advancement. And that is one of the things that the draft legal services bill and regulations are meant to address. So, as you know, the legal services legislation is something that has been very controversial over the years, and for some reason or other, the government has been unable to pass a form of new legislation that makes everyone happy, meaning the Caymanians, sole practitioners, the Caymanian qualified lawyers, and the law firms. So over the years, it's been difficult getting some draft in place that would make everyone happy. And so the new draft legal services bill is meant to be in a format that is supposed to make everyone happy. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of different views on this, especially from sole practitioners who may feel that they're impacted more or for whatever reason. So there will be a lot of discussion on the bill, which, when passed into legislation, will regulate the practice of Cayman Islands law in Cayman and outside Cayman. Why outside Cayman? Because some firms have offices overseas, and the lawyers that work for those firms overseas who are not Caymanian and who are not called to the bar in Cayman, they will need to be issued legal practice certificates in order to practice Cayman Islands law overseas. So that's one of the goals of this new bill, as well as to make sure that everyone has a legal practicing certificate who's working with one of those firms overseas. But the conversation today is focused more on the regulations and the training and development of Caymanians.
Mm-hmm.
So just outline it for the public.
But before, if I may interject, just for clarity, in my own personal edification, as it were, your two comments. One, the bill, as you understand it, those attorneys who are practicing in a Cayman law in another jurisdiction, is it your understanding that the proposed bill would cause them to be regulated subject to the Cayman jurisdiction, therefore have to apply and pay their requisite fees in Cayman as if they were practicing in Cayman, even though they'll be overseas? Is that your understanding?
That's correct. That's what the draft bill says, that those overseas persons are expected to have their names on the roll of the Cayman Islands courts, and also expected to be issued a legal practice certificate.
From here?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
All right. And then I don't want to get, unless you wish to, we can always do another time, because something that, again, it may just be my own personal interest and reflecting that everything we do affects everything. It isn't that just because you're not in a legal profession as a practicing attorney doesn't mean that this couldn't affect you. It could affect you indirectly. It could affect you down the road if you decide to become, I will change careers and become a lawyer. But I was under the view that it didn't. Now, secondly, your perspective on the draft legislation. If you were in a column of yes or no support, where would you fall?
I think that the draft bill would require some work to make the majority of the interested parties with something major at stake to be happy. Mm-hmm. So the process of finalizing that will take place over the next couple of weeks, when the lawyers from all sides and the government will discuss the implications of the draft bill if passed in its current form. Mm-hmm. Obviously, well-known sole practitioner like Samuel Jackson will probably lay in heavy on the detailed provisions of the bill and what possible amendments could be made to make people happier. But the goal today is to look at the regulations which are going to be issued pursuant to that bill that deal with training and promotion. And just want to give your listening audience an overview of what happens to qualify as a lawyer. So the first thing, obviously, is you most likely get a scholarship, or you pay for yourself and get a loan. You go to university, get your degree. That normally takes 3 years in England. So after you do your degree, you do a professional course. That's normally a solicitor's course in England or a bar vocational course. Mm-hmm. So students normally choose one of either, depending on what their goal is. So a student may choose the solicitor's course because generally he wants to do corporate work and sit behind a desk, generally speaking. And the person who does a bar vocational course will generally be in court, have an audience in court. So after you complete your bar course or your solicitor's course, you're then required to work for a certain period. In Cayman is 18 months. So you get your scholarship, you go to university, you finish university, you do your professional course. After you do your professional course, you do your practical training. Mm-hmm. Once your practical training is done, then you get called to the bar and you are legally qualified to practice law in Cayman.
Now, with that then, it would be that normally 3 years for your LLB, then 18 months for your, as you call it, professional training. That was what was articles? Would it be called the same thing?
Yes.
And then 6 months for your professional exams.
So the professional exam is actually in the middle.
Right, you do that first, and then it's 5 years in total.
Yeah,
6 months, and then a year and a half.
Pretty much, yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Could you clarify for us? We were of the opinion initially that you could do, while you were doing your professional exams, also be doing your articles. now we understand that there's been a change in the Cayman context, that you have to first conclude your professional exam, successfully pass them, then do your articles, so that the 18 months and the 6 run together. Now it could be somewhat of an extended period. Is that what is transpiring now, or can you still do your professional exams while you're preparing for them? You're doing your articles.
As far as I know, and what my friends have been through, you generally do your exam first, and after you pass your exam, you're in a position to commence your articles. I'm not aware of a situation where you're allowed to not pass the exam and then commence your training. But obviously you mentioned that is there an interesting question to bring up. But I think from a perspective of the law firm, they might want to see someone who's actually passed the exam, showing they have the ability to pass, and then invest the time and expense involved in training. So when you look at the legal services regulations, it starts out with what firms would be required to offer a scholarship program. And so legal services regulations start off by saying that basically the regulations apply to firms with basically more than 15 attorneys at law. So these firms with more than 15 attorneys at law will basically have to have a scholarship program in place. And the legal services regulations state that each of those firms would have to have at least one Caymanian on a scholarship program. So,
is it one per every X number of practicing, or is it just one? Is there sort of a formula?
I think when you finish university and you start your training, I think at the level of training, which is what we call article clerks, I think at that level, I think that a ratio is contemplated. And I think that will probably be set out in the business plan that the law firm has submitted to immigration or business staffing plan board.
So it would be each entity then, each law firm could have its own thing. It wouldn't be prescribed for the formula that is prescribed for within the regulations. One for every 5, one for every 10, 2 for every 3.
Yeah, I'll say that I don't know how that would look.
Okay.
I don't know if there's going to be one prescribed ratio, for example, 2/3 or a 1/3. I don't know, because it could be that the firms could argue that one size does not fit all, because it applies to the requirement to have a scholarship program in place applies to firms with 15 attorneys or more. So, for example, a firm of 20 attorneys may say they don't have the level of fee income to give out a scholarship or to give out more than one scholarship. So I think that's why the law probably says that size firm is required to have at least one Caymanian on a scholarship. So I think maybe this regulation could probably be improved so it's on a tiered basis. So, for example, if you have a law firm with 15 to 20 attorneys, then you should have one Caymanian on a scholarship program. And let's say if you have 20 to 30 attorneys, we may look at your revenue and we could say a law firm with 20 to 30 attorneys doing this particular practice, making this particular revenue, perhaps they could have, two or three attorneys on scholarship at a time.
Right.
And then other tier could be more than 30 attorneys, and we could say maybe looking at their revenue and their type of practice, they could have maybe 5 attorneys,
right.
5 Caymanians on the scholarship at any one time.
Right. As you go to the breakdown, I'm thinking that we now require, let's say, attorneys in particular, to disclose their revenue in the absence of any sort of system like that. How will we know? Maybe we can pick that up after the news break, talk more about it. Joining me is Alric Lindsay, so we invite you to stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news. Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
The dates and venues for the public meetings for the cruise and cargo port facility have been announced. Premier took to social media this morning to encourage everyone to come out, watch the presentations, and have your questions answered. The first meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 12th at Mary Miller Hall in Prospect, Red Bay. All meetings start at 7 p.m. and are open to the public. You can check out supportourtourism.com for more. In news elsewhere, Nigel Farage has called on Boris Johnson to drop his Brexit deal or face his party's candidates in every seat. Speaking at the Brexit Party's election campaign launch, he called on the PM to build a Leave alliance and seek a free trade agreement with the EU. If Mr. Johnson refuses, Mr. Farage said he already had 500 candidates he could field against the Tories in seat across England, Scotland and Wales. The Conservatives have consistently ruled out a formal pact with the party. 5 million masks are being distributed at schools in India's capital, Delhi, after pollution made the air so toxic, officials were forced to declare a public health emergency. A Supreme Court-mandated panel imposed several restrictions in the city and 2 neighboring states as air quality deteriorated to severe levels. Dangerous particulate levels in the air are about 20 times the WHO maximum. The city's schools have also been closed until at least next Tuesday. Those are your latest updates here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Congratulations, I hear the family is expanding.
Yes, our family is growing bigger, but I don't know how we're going to get around. Our old car just doesn't have enough room.
You should head over to Vamp Motors and ask about the Toyota Rush. It's a 7-seater SUV with lots of room and safety features, and it's on sale for just $21,900.
Rush in to Vamp Motors for the best deal of the year on the Toyota Rush SUV. Save up to $2,600 with Vamp cashback and the Toyota factory rebate going on right now. Fuel efficient, stylish, roomy, and loaded with safety features. The Rush is the perfect SUV for you and your family, starting from just $21,900. Visit Vamp Motors and drive your deal home today while stock lasts. Saturday, November 2nd, Breeze Fusion 2019.
Are you ready? Yeah. The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run. Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run
and a 10K run for half marathon trainers.
Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO.
Yes, Cayman Islands, it's back. Your chance to be healthy. Your chance to give back.
Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studio.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
I like to move it. You like to move it. The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Taking place at Smith Bacadere, starting at 6:15 a.m.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. The phone lines are open if you want to call and share a thought with us, as we are truly enjoying a good company of Mr. Alaric Lindsay. And as we talk about training and promotion opportunities, and sometimes laws that may make, by its regulations, certain provisions to ensure not just the opportunities exist, but the continued, sort of future stability and prosperity of a particular profession. With this legal services legislation, may I ask then, is it then that in the past we referred or heard it being referred to as the Legal Practitioners Bill? Is it now being referred to as legal services legislation? Is that one and the same, or have we changed something different and no longer the LPB but something else?
So we have the Legal Practitioners Law, but once this Legal Services Bill passes it into legislation, yes, the name will change.
But what is now, and I don't wish to belabor it, I don't want it to be semantics, I just want to be
The
absolute.
legal services bill, once passed into law, will replace the legal practitioners law.
And then just for me again, what is now being touted as legal services bill was, for all intents and purposes, could be and was previously referred to as the legal practitioners bill.
That's correct.
Okay, so a nice put a word, lipstick on a pig sort of deal. You know what, Fridays, if you can't be candid, you know, maybe you have a chance Monday, but you never know what could happen between now and Monday, right? So it's the same thing, basically. Legal services, legal practitioners, one and the same.
I think the content may be a little different.
Yeah, but the concept.
But the concept is similar.
Okay. Well, hopefully that's why we have revisions and the like, so that the content can change. But so legal services, legal practitioners. Okay, semantics.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. What does that mean then for practicing attorneys, future attorneys? Are there any significant implications, or it's really, you know what, a sailcloth by any other color?
Sure, you know, lawyers deal with semantics all the time. That's how you get. That's how you get paid the money.
Is it? Didn't know that.
So we've talked about law firms who have to have a scholarship program in place. So the next step is, as I explained earlier, after you have your scholarship and you finish university, and let's say you successfully pass your professional exam after you finish university. The next step then is to go and do your practical training with the law firm. So what the legal services regulations says is that a law firm shall interview for training each of its scholarship students. This means that the first step that a law firm will take under the regulations is to offer the interview to its scholarship student to see if that student can get a training contract.
Yeah.
So I guess from the perspective of the law firm wants to ensure that although the student has a degree and has passed his professional exam, that student is capable of going through a program of training. That's probably from the perspective of the law firm. From the perspective of the scholarship student, however, it may lead to some uncertainty because the regulation only says the law firm will offer an interview for training. It doesn't say that the scholarship student will have employment after he graduates university and finishes his professional exam. It only says the law firm shall offer an interview, just an interview.
Yeah, I invite you to come watch the movie, but you're not so sure I can turn it on. All right, I want to expound on that a little bit further. The phone lines are open. Alaric Lindsay sits with us. There's a call online. Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling Green.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
Good afternoon to Mr. Lindsay.
Good afternoon.
Also, yes. Good to hear him on there.
Yes, sir.
First, just say that you said that it takes like 5 years of university study, become a lawyer, 3 or 4 years, and then you have to do 18 months as an article clerk before you're called to the bar and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all correct?
So it's 3 years in university in England generally, and then 18 months of training.
Yes.
And then the professional exams, yeah.
Yeah. No, I know a lot of people who can barely read or write, been called to the bar and been in the bar room for donkey's years, with a lot less education, a lot less time on that. But anyhow, yeah, they're still there for many years.
Mm-hmm.
But joking aside, it's great to know that we're trying to carve out an area, a niche for all our young Caymanian lawyers, like this, and so forth, and getting that done. But we also know it's very hard to drum up support and sympathy for the people who are the highest earners and the legal profession, the accountants and all that, and those people involved in the financial world, whether it's fund administrators, and most of them are lawyers and accountants anyhow, one way or the other. And drum up support and sympathy when we have thousands out there barely trying to keep their head above the water. But anyway, we still have to understand. So it's very difficult for the ordinary person, who is by far the majority, to understand and appreciate what this is all about. it's one thing that concerns me, because as far as I'm concerned, if people come here to work or live here, and the main thing or addition to the government would be for them to be paying some sort of tax to the government, because governments can't survive without tax. That would be their contribution. I'm just wondering, the two things. When you say that these are outsourced or they're practicing Cayman law in some other country, whether it be Timbuktu or wherever, they are working for Caymanian registered firms, or they're just working for a firm practicing Cayman law over there. That's number one. The other thing is this: if they are working for Cayman firms and if they are practicing Cayman law, I know anywhere else in the world they're paying some form of direct income tax while they're doing that, because if we go away and work anywhere at all, even in Great Britain, we have to pay income tax. We know that, because we know that's a fact. Are they paying any form of, they're paying direct income tax to their country that they're practicing that law in, but are they paying anything to the Cayman Islands government from their salaries? And if they're employed by Caymanian firms over there doing that, then I presume they should be, if they're paying some income tax to their country there, then they should be paying some to us over here. If that is, that's just how I look at it. Because otherwise, as I'm saying, it is very difficult for all of us to understand the impact this is having on the government here. And I can understand the impact on young Caymanian lawyers or so forth. There's nothing straightforward for them. But I just wonder, what is this all about? Are they employed by Caymanian registered firms, or are they just on their own practicing Cayman laws? There must be something specific and unique about Cayman law. I don't want to practice it. Can it be just because we don't have any direct income tax? And there are other parts, I guess, like Bermuda, which has direct income tax, the same business as we are, but they have no corporate tax either. So maybe that's one of the reasons why. I don't know. Or maybe the structure of the law, the system is different and better. I just wonder if you can explain that. What is the benefit to the government? What is really the benefit to the country? And are they paying any form of direct income tax to our government? Since they're paying direct income tax to the country over there, they're practicing it in. I just wonder if there's some answer to that, or is it too garbled and confusing even for lawyers to straighten out what I just asked? I'll hang up and listen on.
Thank you, sir. A good comment. I think Mr. Lindsay will refresh them. So help us now to the caller's questions.
Sure, I'd be happy to help. So, first of all, Cayman law is unique to lawyers because there's a lot of money to be made. So it's not just that Cayman law is pretty and it's nice to have. It's because of the type of income you can earn while practicing Cayman law. So going to his questions, his first question is whether those persons are practicing Cayman law with Cayman registered firms, and I can say that the big firms do have affiliates in Hong Kong and different jurisdictions, and yes, those lawyers working for those lawyers are working for those Cayman firms. However, I would say that from time to time, you do get some clients that say they don't need a lawyer and they're from a different jurisdiction, and they get their internal counsel to just review the documents, and they hope that they're in line with Cayman law. But to answer your question, yes, there are many lawyers working for affiliates of Cayman firms in other jurisdictions. The other question he asked was whether they are paying any fees to the government. And as far as I know, the firms do pay operational license fees to the government on an annual basis. And one of the things that is anticipated by the the new legal services bill, is that all of the lawyers will pay fees for practicing certificates. So while they're overseas, they'll be issued a practicing certificate while they're working for the affiliate of the Cayman law firm overseas, and they will be required to pay that annual fee. So that I think that answers his 2 questions, and his comment that it's hard to have sympathy for the highest earners in the country. I do agree it is difficult to have sympathy for the highest earners in the country when we have kids that are going to school that don't have sufficient money for lunch, and we have a lot of people in this country that are sort of living below the poverty line. I do a lot of volunteer work with the Cayman Food Bank, for example, and through that work I got a really good insight into the number of people who on appearance seems like they're doing well.
Right.
But when you look into their actual living situation, they have so much pride and they don't want to beg for anything.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to make things work. But for some of these people, they don't have sufficient food to give to their children, to go to school. And obviously that probably affects the child's performance. But not to go off the topic, but just agreeing with the caller that it is quite tough to...
All right, when we come back from the break, let's ask more about this whole issue of the training and opportunities, and there's some things that we want to maybe understand a little bit better. Join us after the break, please.
Saturday, November 2nd, Breeze Fusion 2019. Are you ready?
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run. Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCBO.
Yes, Cayman Islands, it's back. Your chance to be healthy. Your chance to give back.
Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studio.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
I like to move it. You like to move it. The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Taking place at Smith Bacadere, starting at 6:15 a.m.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
For the health of it, Radio Cayman's premier health show is brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy, the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, Holy Cross Hospital,
Cayman Fertility Center,
and EatingClean.com.
This is For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to DJ Lynn. He's on the other side, and in the studio, Mr. Alric Lindsay. When you said earlier, Mr. Lindsay, that you came in to hang out with DJ Lynn, most people would be offended, but when they see the persona of DJ Lynn, you recognize why. So, head up to the DJ, right? What do you think?
I would have thought one of us would have got a shout out during the break, but
no, he is. Look at him. I tell you, boy. What they say. You draw a light smile on his face. You see what he's doing, Mr. Lindsay. I want to ask of you, if I may, a comment earlier in relation to the provisions within the regulations that you were sharing. The firm of attorneys are required to interview not offer for employment opportunity. There are some who have shared, attorneys, practicing attorneys, as well as those who are considering the profession as a possible career, that given this, I'm trying to remember what the best words to use, but maybe the one that seems to jump to mind is the one that's been used more often by those who have shared their comments. Given this level of power to an individual as opposed to making it mandatory by legislation, well, we interview you, but we're not sure we're going to offer you anything, is akin to what we did with the key employee, where it was not so determined fairly. It was not for the firm, but for the individual, and the determination was specific to that person. Limiting further ask, and with respect to the legal regulations that you referred to, is doing it this way, making it one more like a closed shop, so denying the potential for more people to become at least qualified as attorneys. And then two, if we were to remove it, whether or not they find employment after they're admitted to practice should be on them. You can't force someone to hire you. Why should you force someone to train you? You pass the requisite qualifications and examinations and the like. Now go out and hang your shingle and make your way.
So what we're talking about is the scholarship student who has passed his or her professional exam and is now ready to start his practical training in order to become attorney at law.
Right.
So as you rightly said, the law firm has an obligation under the regulations to offer an interview for training. So to answer your questions, hopefully, I think we have to think positively. So hopefully the law firm will say, I've spent all this money on a scholarship, $150,000, $200,000 on this one student. Hopefully the law firm will say, I want a return on my investment. So let me put this guy or this lady to work. Let me give them a training contract.
Right.
So hopefully the law firms will think in that way, in a very positive way, wanting to recoup their investment.
Okay.
And that also then works in the favor of the student.
All right. Well, let me
because now the student will have a job. But the way that the regulation is worded, it gives it does not give certainty of employment for a student who's passed his professional exam and wishes to be trained. So there's no certainty for that person.
So very much like I'm obligated to invite you to sit down by the dinner table, but I have to put out a plate of food for you, so you can sit and watch everybody else. Let me then ask then, you referenced 150 to 200,000. For those of us who don't know the cost of getting a legal education, you went to law school for 3 years, say the law school here, the fees are published. 3 years times X, how do you arrive at that sum of $150,000 to $200,000 as a cost for the training?
That's not the cost of the training. I was thinking the cost of the education itself.
So law school tuition.
So it's not just law school tuition. Some firms will help you with your rent.
Okay.
So it's all those expenses put together over a period. You could have had an emergency during that period, which required.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. So that we understand that, and I don't wish for anybody to misunderstand. Any assistance that anybody give, whether it's a foundation, whether it's an individual, whether it's a legal firm or an accounting, that provides an opportunity for education, man, I wish I could match it, $10 for everyone that they give, because education is that important. So I'm very grateful, whether they do that obligation or whether they do that of a genuine commitment. Doesn't matter. Education is that important. So I'm very grateful, but I think some of us don't appreciate what the true costs are. And I was hoping that you could help us to appreciate that,
So I think at 10 years ago, I think I probably paid around $100,000. I would think 10 years later, the cost of attending university is probably a little higher. I would think. I don't know the current cost, but I would think that 10 years later, I think it might be a little higher.
If we looked at the law school tuition just here, or we went to the UK and looked at some of the Russell Group schools and we looked at their tuition, we can figure it out even with exchange rate and the like. So there is a cost, not just the financial cost for the tuition as you shared. But thanks for helping us to at least start to understand that.
So, as you say, we have to be grateful for any company in Cayman that gives a scholarship to a Caymanian. So, just to be clear, I mean, we're all very grateful for having scholarships. I got a scholarship to do accounting when I studied accounting. And after I passed the CPA exam, I decided to go back to school. And that time around, I got a loan to do law. Mm-hmm. So my perspective on this covers a wide range. Yeah. So we covered the scholarship student who's come back to Cayman, and the firm has to offer him an interview, but is not obligated to offer him training. So what we said is that, hopefully the law firm will do the right thing and say they want to recoup their investment, and that will also work out in the Cayman's favor. He will have a job. But the way the provision is currently worded, there's not a certainty that a scholarship student returning from university will get training. So what happens next? So we know that the law firm will look at its own scholarship student first to give them training. So the legislation, the regulations then talk about what happens after the law firm has considered all of its own scholarship students for training. The regulations say that if any position for training is available following the acceptance of the law firm's own scholarship student, then it may interview other Caymanians for training. So it creates sort of a complex structure. So the law firm will first look at its own scholarship student and say, yes or no, we will offer you training.
If I may ask, then, and I want to say right now that it would be hopeful that you and or any of your other colleagues in the future to come back on and continue this discussion, because it isn't just about those practicing law now, or just even about law. But we understand from some individuals that the UK at some point is moving towards sort of the super exam. So a lot of the things are going to be changing. We understand from some that even within our within our region, that there a move towards similar to what the US is doing relative to the legal profession. You sit the bar exam, you pass, and then that's that. Is it then that maybe it's an opportune time for Cayman to consider any amendments to be along those lines as well, so that we don't have to be subject to the discretion of whether you get articles or not? You do your 3 years or however many to get your LLB, you pass your professional exams, and then, you go and you make your way.
Well, you raise an interesting point. However, we would have to have that sort of thing laid out in regulations or legislation, and the big players would have to agree to that type of approach.
Why? Who would it be? You mean the big law firms?
Well, we have to look at who controls the industry, and currently the bigger firms do control the industry and do contribute the bulk of the GDP that comes from that sector.
Sorry, Jack, I don't want to miss it. But why should we, as a country, have to wait for those who control to decide whether there should be a change, if the change will benefit the improved education and access to education, to increasing the numbers who are qualified to be legal practitioners? Sometimes you would think the status quo is better to be maintained if it's going to maintain those who are now benefiting from the status quo.
So my view on that is it works both ways. If you have a view on a topic, then you should express that view. And if you can collectively express the view to change the status quo, then that's what you should do. However, in Cayman, what you find is that one person may raise the issue that is being felt by many people. However, when that one person goes to bat for those other people, many times in Cayman, the other people fall away.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this issue in Cayman where people feel that if they try to make changes that are in the best interests of Caymanians, or that's in the best interest of a particular profession, they feel that if they make public comments, that they will get blacklisted, they will never have a job again, they won't be able to get a loan, no one will ever look at their job application. And so this is the fear that some professionals have. If I do speak out, then I'll be penalized for it.
So you're ostracized and castigated and like.
Well, that is very possible. That's very possible. But I think that unless the people who are affected collectively respond and collectively express their view about what is in the best interests of the country, then the big players will control the narrative.
Okay, let me ask then, and not just respectfully, maybe to invite a response from you, but for those who are listening as we go into the weekend, do we know the requirements, what it takes to become licensed as an educator in this country? We know lawyers and doctors and engineers and other professions, accountants now, they have to be licensed by some entity or the like, right? So for teachers, we understand that they issue a license by the education department. So you now have this call in this journey. You want to follow your grandmother, your father, whoever it is, into the teaching profession. You want to be an educator. Do we know what that process is? Do they likewise go through an apprenticeship and an articles or some other similar sort of training?
You're talking about for an attorney?
No. An educator, a teacher, that primary school teacher, that high school teacher, the person who's going to instruct us, the future lawyers and accountants and engineers, the future educators, the future politicians, the future. So that teacher in our classrooms who are touching the lives of all of us, not just our children, but the parent. What is it that makes that person a teacher? What is it that they go through to become licensed and to be sanctioned to be able to go into the classroom to teach our students? Are they required to go through examinations, a period of articles, apprenticeship, training, and the like? Not experience that it comes from being a teacher over a period of time, but to be able to say, now, I am a licensed, duly qualified, competent teacher to go into this classroom and teach primary school, all the subjects, to teach just math or physical education or whatever the subject. Do teachers in Cayman, do they have to be licensed? And if so, is it similar to what lawyers with respect to the articles, whatever it's called? Do we know what that is?
I'm not familiar with the educational regime for teachers, but I do have a high appreciation for teachers because they're the ones who are setting the tone for us at a very young age. However, I don't think that we show enough respect to teachers. Teachers earn not a very high salary compared to what they actually produce for the country.
Right. And as I shared, I wasn't not meaning to be expecting a response from you, or intended to be anyway.
Lawyers are not supposed to respond to something they're not competent in responding to.
Maybe so more shouldn't say anything. But no, the reason why I ask is that, and I say this with the greatest respect, like you, we have a great, healthy respect for our educators, right? But if our teachers aren't subjected to that, perhaps the most important calling that a person can have as a teacher, if they're not subject to that, why should lawyers? I mean, lawyers are dime a dozen to say a good lawyer is, and we all the jokes that we hear, right? Not to say that they're not important, but if we can, like now, with the opportune time to say, if we're going to make changes, why can't a person pass after getting the university education and passing the professional examinations, go and say, okay, I'm a lawyer now. Why should that person now be subjected to somebody in a law firm somewhere saying, I don't know if I want to give you articles. You know what? I don't like the color of your skin. I don't like your hair. In fact, your breath smells bad. Or your eyes are funny. Or, oh, you're from SB. Or whatever that thing is. And preclude that person, despite the competency, the zeal, the zest, the passion, the ability. You just can't get articles. why should that be subjected by somebody else?
It's an interesting point. As you probably know, in other jurisdictions, there is no practical training requirement after you pass your professional exams. So in some jurisdictions, once you pass your exam, you can start practicing law immediately.
Exactly. Sorry, Mr. Lin. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do apologize to you, Mr. Lindsay, and to Mr. Lin. I love the opportunity to talk more about education, and hopefully as people hear it, it's something that I'm passionate. I only wish I was much smarter than what I am, but I'm eternally grateful for our parents for encouraging this zeal for being a lifelong learner. A few minutes more, if I could, and ask you maybe for some thoughts, not to abbreviate anything and not to take away from what we were chatting about. 1 hour was just not enough. Would you accept the invitation to come on again in the future?
Sure. We've only covered the scholarship student aspect, so there are other aspects after you complete your training, and going up after you complete your training, becoming qualified, and what's involved with advancement and promotion. The most controversial thing in Cayman is whether a Caymanian can be an equity partner, which means can a Caymanian share in the profits of the law firm. So that is one of the most controversial topics in Cayman, and it's something we can cover next time.
All right, and maybe just as a tease, can a Caymanian, what's the impediment? I mean, is that, maybe we do that for next time, where you will give us a little sneak and preview of that?
Sure. The Legal Services Bill does not mention equity partner.
And that's where the money is, right?
The money is being an equity partner because that's where you earn the profits. So you're talking about law firms that are making hundreds of millions of dollars. And
sorry, how much? Hundreds of millions of dollars?
Yes, and in this industry, there are hundreds of millions of dollars being made, and if you are an equity partner, you could take home $10 million as a bonus 1 year easily. So the goal of a lot of lawyers is to become equity because that's where the real money is. The other type of, like I say, equity partner is not referred to in the regulations when it talks about promotion to partner. The only type of partner that's mentioned in the regulations is a salaried partner. So a salaried partner is not going to receive the profits of that business. So a salaried partner may make, let's say a salaried partner makes $700,000 a year. To everyone on the street,
that's good money.
$700,000 sounds like a lot of money, but compared to an equity partner, it's really nothing.
So your $700,000 compared to your colleague who's an equity partner, $15 million for the year, $20 million, $10 million.
You never know. It may depend on the profits of the firm for that particular year.
Exactly.
But yes, we can talk about that next time. But like I said, the regulations refer to the possibility of becoming a salaried partner. It does not refer expressly to becoming an equity partner, which is very interesting. So we have to find out why that distinction is there.
And this is why I'm grateful that you and others are willing to talk about these discussions, because for some of us, we don't have any interest in this because we're not lawyers, we have no intention. We may say our children don't. They may, but we don't know, or we may think, but maybe their children. If we get it wrong now with so many things, how will it affect life to come? Thanks for at least accepting the invite to share a thought with us, and maybe cause some of us to maybe delve into it a little bit more. Closing thoughts, Mr. Lindsay?
I was at Grace Christian Academy the other day doing a presentation with Cayman Food Bank, and Phil Heyer, who's the operations manager, was asking all the students what they wanted to be. And I was surprised that so many students said they care about the environment, and so they want to be marine biologists, they want to be scientists. So what I would say is, I think more people need to be scientists and biologists in this country. I think we need to change that conversation so that kids don't think that they just have to be lawyers and accountants. I think we need to change that conversation. So although the salary is great as a lawyer, I do think that others in the community are making huge contributions far beyond money.
Exactly. And if I may attempt to complement what you shared, those who want to be lawyers and accountants and in the financial sector can get qualified as such, but use that as a basis. So the lawyer who is an advocate in the environmental sector, who's looking at the science, because that's the passion interest, can use the law degree as a way to access the courts to advocate, to ensure there's a level playing field when someone is able to. The fellow who went to school and has an engineering qualification now has sought her MBA, can work just as effectively as the CEO as she can on the factory floor, manufacturing and design and all other things. So the legal qualification doesn't just mean that you have to be in a law firm practicing law. You could be involved in sciences and the environment and the like, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, man. Listen, Lindsay, always a pleasure, man. I love when people love education, and I love when parents make that continued sacrifice to ensure that their children are not just staying up late and studying, but they get to bed early and a good sleep and a good breakfast in the morning, take them through the day, that they're respectful and responsible. And as educators, we feel the value, not just in the paycheck, but in the praise that we receive, right? Lawyers. All right, listen, thank you very much, and I trust and pray that whatever we say and do here helps you to feel more empowered, encouraged, nurtured, and that you will stand up and do the right thing always. I say this carefully but deliberately. Just because you're in charge and you wield a heavy stick, maybe you forget that that's when you need to be the most respectful. Until Monday, be blessed.
Loving can hurt. Loving can hurt sometimes, but it's the only thing that I know. When it gets hard, you know it can get hard sometimes. It is the only thing that makes us feel alive.